Is there any truth to the claim that innocent drinks are funding UK rewilding? A closer look at the bottle shows you that Innocent, owned by the Coca-Cola company, is actually giving money to urban orchards. Well, city orchards. Hang on a minute, city orchards? Is that really rewilding? Well look, I'm not going to dig into the charity Innocent are funding, but I can tell you how orchards are connected to rewilding and what secrets they hide. But first, I need to find an orchard. Tastes like rewilding. You might be thinking that orchards are basically farms, and you'd be right, but also missing the point. When straight-tusked elephants roamed the UK, the ecosystems across a lot of the country were likely to have been similar to the modern-day Serengeti, but instead of those thorny acacia trees you see giraffes nibbling on the telly, if you still own a telly that is, you would likely have had little groves of fruit trees scattered across the landscape. And that's what rewilders might be hoping to replicate in modern-day orchards. Natural orchards, or fruit tree groves, formed because the species which eat our native fruit, that is, the pears, cherries, crab apples and sloes, would have pooped out their seeds all across the landscape. Crab apples? Well, yeah. The species of apple we grow on farms today is a relative newcomer to the British landscape, and really only got established a few hundred years ago. The crab apple is our only native species of apple tree, but I wouldn't recommend eating one. They don't have the size or the flavour of good old Malus domestica. So, you might be wondering why we're talking about non-native trees in rewilding. You might know that native trees are crucial foundations for a healthy ecosystem. But it turns out, as Malus domestica is such a close cousin of the crabapple, it's also able to support a huge variety of UK biodiversity. Not only that, but it can be grown profitably too. And you can even keep livestock alongside it in the landscape, like sheep, horses or chickens. These animals benefit from the shade, fruit and insects provided by the trees, whilst they in turn provide fertiliser, pest control and grazing, similar to a natural ecosystem. Rewilding is about improving things for both nature and people, not just creating wild landscapes, so orchards are a great solution. But the benefits of orchards isn't confined to apple trees. Pears are great too, and the native variety is not only edible, but surprisingly tasty. Wild pear trees can reach up to 20 metres in height, but picking fruit way up there isn't very safe, so humans tend to cut them down to size. But pears aren't just for human consumption. As a colleague of mine discovered, Neil found a huge variety of pear growing in an old orchard he managed and gave the fruit a taste. It was disgusting, he said, but he kept coming back through the season, waiting for it to ripen. But the taste of the fruits, it never improved. One day, his site was visited by a fruit expert, because of course it was, who was excited to discover that Neil's fruit was in fact a fodder pear. These are grown for animal feed and not for human consumption. And yes, animals do love a good fruit. In fact, one of the best ways to encourage nature into an orchard or in your own garden is to leave fallen fruit on the ground. Many species of animal, from badgers to thrushes, will feed on this tasty feast, which will help them get through the harshest months of the year. But what else can orchard growers do? Well, allowing mistletoe to grow in your trees helps to feed the birds, while leaving fallen branches to rot down rather than tidying them away can enrich your soil. Older trees support more biodiversity too, especially if they're rotten or full of holes. So the longer a tree is left standing, the better. And don't forget that different varieties of apple flower at slightly different times of year. Plant a number of varieties and you can provide an ongoing source of nectar, helping to support pollinators and the rest of the food web for really quite a long time. It's also valuable to protect rare varieties of apple, apples and pears that is, Preserving that genetic diversity into the future, just like rewilders often partner with the Rare Breed Survival Trust to find hardy species of herbivore that thrive in modern day rewilding projects like this one. On my field I've planted Tom Putt. The local farmer, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning that he's 70 years old. He said to me that as a boy he used to pick Tom Putt apples in his orchard on his farm, just a few fields away from where I am now. I was delighted to show him the Tom Putt tree which I'd bought until my mum accidentally mixed up the labels. Now it's an exciting waiting game. One of these trees you can see in front of you is Tom Putt, but we just have to see which one it is. This kind of cultural legacy is something which rewilding can really struggle with in the UK. So orchards are a fantastic way of addressing that cultural connection. Privately owned orchards are also a great way of increasing the diversity of land ownership in the countryside. Okay, but are orchards really rewilding? That's what you came here for. Well, it's not really for me to say. Rewilding is an ever-evolving movement. To me, it means three things: diversity, dispersal, and disturbance. That is, creating a diverse landscape and ecosystem with highly connected paths for dispersal of animals and plant seed through it, and human or herbivore-mediated disturbances of the habitat, like forestry, grazing, or light management. Do orchards really fit that description? They could do. It depends on the orchard and the way it's managed. I don't think we should be censoring people for using the term rewilding, or for applying their own interpretation to it. Language changes. We can't stop that, and I don't think we should try. But the three core rewilding principles do really help guide an ecosystem towards recovery. So it would be fantastic to see them implemented in all of Innocent Drinks' rewilding projects. Tastes like rewilding. This little guy is part of an orchard and there's a plane overhead. Would have popped out their seeds, pooped out their seeds all across the landscape. Would have pooped out their seeds. There's the moon, look at the moon, look at the moon, look at the moon.